Okay, class, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive into World War II. I'm super excited about this. So, you might recognize that the Brooklyn Dodgers was going on during this time. Like, there was some fun stuff happening, football games and baseball games. So when we think about World War II, we kind of just think all the bad, scary stuff that happened. And there was a lot of bad, scary stuff that happened. I'm just writing something down real fast. Sorry. Actually, believe it or not, though, C.S. Lewis played a big part of World War II. If I'm not mistaken, Mere Christianity was something that he read over the radio during this time period. He took in children. That's how he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So there was some, there was still some. God was still at work even in this midst of this war. So here's what started happening. There was this thing called the Fascist Party, which is basically a tyrantcy, which Italy became under with Benito Mussolini, and Germany became under from Adolf Hitler, and then there was Joseph Stalin in Russia. And I cannot say this man's name, but the Japanese were also fascist. I cannot say his name. So we're going from page 491 there, 492, 493, to 502. We're just going to skip around a little bit. That way. Sorry, I keep getting a bunch of emails. So we tried to remain neutral for a while in the war. We didn't really want to be involved. We just got out of the Great Depression from being in a war before. We're not trying to get into the war. We're trying to stay out of it. However, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, which you've probably heard of, and that is how we ended up we had to retaliate. We couldn't just let them attack us and do nothing. So we ended up having to strike against Japan. So go ahead and move on to page 505. And as you can see, there is Rosie the Riveter there saying, we can do it. And this was all about women power. And women have not been the same since. So this allowed women to kind of have a role once again in war. We started before women kind of going to work a little bit and making victory gardens. Now women are taking full on. They're like, I've already been through this once. I can do this again. And so a lot of them, this whole victory garden thing, war bonds, rations, all the things that you saw in World War I just heightened in World War II. We're going to keep going here. And there was just a lot of lifestyle changes with women going to work and things that I wish we could have, if you have time and you're interested in this. I love the Molly movie. It's clean. I promise it's clean movie. It's called the Molly movie from the American Girls. And it really does show a great way of like having to live. Like in America, we took in children from England because their homes were getting bombed, and at night people would have to turn off the lights and hide in case they were like practice in case they were getting bombed. It was really sad, but it was just the way that they lived. So we're going to 509 now. So D-Day, which is something that most of you have probably heard about. Pretty much it's talked about quite often. It was on June 4th, 1944, Erwin Rommel looked at the impressive coastal defenses of the French side of the English Channel and glanced at the threatening skies. And they decided they went to the German shore, and on D-Day, June 6, 1944, it was an invasion. So you've probably heard of that Normandy, where they had the war there, battle. Flip over to 516. This is the sad part of World War II. Honestly, this is the part that's very, very sad. And if you've ever heard of the Diary of Anne Frank, this is kind of what it came from. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he was a German theologian. He actually wrote a book called, what's it called? Life Together. And it talks about, like, sharing in a compound, basically, like, or in this close community, sharing the gospel and like knowing you have each other because of the gospel. Sadly, a lot of people in Germany actually do deny the Holocaust. It's not really talked about there from what I've heard. It's not talked about there. They try to act like it never happened. But if you don't know what the Holocaust is, basically Adolf Hitler believed that the chosen race, or like the superior race, was fair-skinned, blonde hair, blue eyes kind of person, and that even though he did not have blonde hair and blue eyes, he did not even fit his own bill. But he wanted to kill all the Jewish people because they were dark skinned, they were dark eyed. Honestly, I just think he had a hatred towards anything that had to do with the Jewish people, and he was just an evil man. I really believe that that's just the truth. Like, I just believe deep down he was just an evil, evil man. And so sadly, he took all of these Jewish people into camps, and they really they didn't have anything. They worked them to the bone. I've seen horrible, gruesome pictures from where people like Brian came in and talked about. Like, we had some people like Holocaust survivors that actually came to Brian and talked a few times, and it was just so sad to hear about like what they had to go through. I showed you guys that video one day of that woman who was actually taken from France to a Holocaust or to a Nazi German concentration camp for being Jewish. And the woman was pregnant. She wasn't going to make it, and she had held on to her little thing of chocolate. She was allowed to keep that little thing of chocolate. Her mom said, "Can you give this up for this woman?" I'll cry thinking about it. And she gave it up, and years later, she got to meet the baby that she saved by her little piece of chocolate. I'm going to tear up thinking about it. Just a sad, sad time in American history. There's a Holocaust museum in Washington, D.C. I went through it. I don't know if I could, because I'd probably just sob the whole time, like I'm doing now. So, sadly, though, they were not the only people that did that. Here in America, we didn't trust the Japanese, and we put them in a concentration camp, too. Now, they were not treated nearly as badly as the Jewish people were in the German concentration camps. However, they were taken off to camps to kind of hold them in a place, because we were afraid that, because it was the Japanese people that attacked us. Remember, back then, they still have this idea that they're just now getting to this idea that, yes, we're an American. Before this point, it was really, I'm an immigrant from somewhere else, and I moved to America, and that's really what the idea of being an American was. It really wasn't this, I'm an American. I was built in America, I was made in America, I have American ideas. They brought their ideas from their own country and still had a love for their own country. And so that's kind of why people didn't trust them and put them in that situation. And obviously we ended up, we actually did, the Allies won the war. The Axis powers was the Germans and the Japanese and Italy, and then the Allies were America, Great Britain, and France. We did pretty much win against Japan because we had an atomic bomb and we blew them up. It was actually made in Oak Ridge, which is like up the road near Knoxville. So, fun fact. So some of the things I'm going to send you guys for today for you guys to watch after you read through all that stuff. We're at the end. We're done, guys, and we made it through, and that was the end of world history, or U.S. history. If we were in school, I was actually going to show you guys The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because it was kind of based on this time period. No wonder, like, why wouldn't you want a place to escape after seeing, some of the things that they saw, and so there's a lot of fun stuff we probably could have watched about this, but I'll just send you guys some links to some stuff to have you guys watch it. And I'm so glad that you guys made it this far through U.S. history, and I'm so glad that you have been, I got to experience teaching U.S. history with you guys as my first class. So thanks for being troopers.